We're back with episode 13 of the Worship Online podcast. I just want to take a second just to say thank you guys so much.
Yes.
All of your guys' support on the reviews in iTunes, all of the messages we're getting, the emails. Yeah. It's really overwhelming. And I'm like extremely humbled because this is, as a business, this is the most we've ever put our heart out there. It's mostly been tutorials, but we're really just getting to get down to the heart of issues. And it really is awesome hearing the feedback from you guys as we share our heart and stuff about worship. So thank you guys so much. I want to read a review here, and this is from the worship director at TSBC. He says, "Pumped." That's the subject line.
That's his title.
I love Worship Online and what they stand for, and this is just another great way that they are reaching out to us and giving us all the help they can. I love these podcasts and have already passed them along to my team. Thank you guys.
That's so cool.
Thank you so much. I don't know your name, but the worship director at TSBC, I'll probably Google it. But anyway, thank you guys so much. If you want to win a free year subscription to Worship Online and all of our video content, tutorials, drums, keys, and learn exactly how all the songs are played on the albums, go to worshiponline.com/podcast and enter your email at the top. We're giving away a free subscription, and we've already given away a handful of free subscriptions. So you could be the next person to win a free subscription. Just go there.
Check it out.
Let's roll the intro.
Welcome back. We're here with episode 13 of the Worship Online podcast, and we're talking about being that person that says yes. And it actually reminds me of a friend of mine up in Rockford, Illinois. It's outside Chicago. Yeah, I've had the privilege of getting to go up there and help my family up there at a church, leading a worship for the past couple years. But there is a guy there who's been going through the leadership college, and it's pretty cool. There's a whole team. I mean, they're awesome people, but his name's Garrett, and I actually just saw that he just posted on the iTunes reviews.
Nice.
But I love what he said, but I just wanted to point him out because he's always been one of those guys that says yes, because we actually kind of threw him in the deep end of the pool for a while because we needed somebody to learn Ableton, play drums, do all these things. And it was he had no idea really how to do most of it, and he jumped in and just figured it out. And he's been slaying it. But he says this podcast is a major key, all caps, to unlocking your full potential. I'm so thankful and grateful for the guys at Worship Online who dedicate their time to equipping the local church. If you lead worship to any extent, this podcast is a must. And he's just one of many, because it's been cool to kind of go through and read some of these. But I love how this is helping people. That's the whole point of why we started this thing.
It's exciting.
It's been really cool.
Really is.
And I know that's the heartbeat of Worship Online. And I'm kind of like a spokesperson / co-host here on the podcast. So it's not like I'm necessarily on staff, but it's so fun to be a part of really the family and extension because, just part of the local church, it really is that extra resource. It's it's kind of the missing key. It's a major key in unlocking the full potential when you're able to go in and watch some of these videos, read some of the resources, and really dive in to be the best musician you can be, whether it's watching Austin on drums, playing it beat for beat, or Max on the guitar. I mean, you just go down the list, you can really understand at a whole new level and consistently get better and find inspiration. So I encourage you, please go online. I can say this because I'm not you.
Say it. You're allowed to say it.
Go to worshiponline.com, get signed up. If you go to worshiponline.com/podcast, you can enter your email to win a free annual membership to Worship Online. But it is so worth the few bucks it costs on a month-to-month basis, because it's an endless supply of songs that you can go and learn and be inspired by. It might be the songs that you're working on, but it could be songs from years ago even that are just going to make you a better musician. So I encourage you, go check it out. And while we do that, we're going to jump into this, because episode 13 is all about being that person that says yes. Say yes. And obviously we're not trying to inspire this huge generation of yes men, but really in the church, it really is kind of being a person who's just available and saying, I want to say yes to this.
You just said it. That was it.
All right, we'll be back.
That was it. We'll be back next week. Being available. That's so huge. This is a perfect segue from last week's episode. And because last week we talked about basically the organization and being behind your leader.
Well, it's a couple weeks ago because we had our interview, but we talked about that with David too.
Oh yeah.
You're right. It was a couple weeks back. We were talking about like the whole knowing who's in charge and like getting behind the worship leader. But you're right. It goes right hand in hand with all of this.
Exactly. And I mentioned that analogy, carrying a bucket of water to put out fires in one hand, and then your other hand is basically you're holding a fan to fan new ideas and say yes, and being that person who moves and being available. And that's what the left hand is. It's that fan. It's that person who says yes. And I had this. When I was started thinking about this, and so I have a lot of friends that live out in LA, and like the house that they have out in LA is right next to this improv studio. We've never been, but it's right next to our favorite sushi restaurant.
Nice.
But the improv, we always see people lined up at the improv, and I was thinking about this. In improv acting, the golden rule, that the first rule thing they tell you is always say yes. That's the number one rule in improv. You always say yes. And so, for instance, say we're doing this improv thing, and I pull out this crazy idea, like I have a gun in my hand, and you have to build on top of that idea. You have to say yes. It's yes, and I also have this, like, with you, and it's like, and it's so it's in you can in improv. That's the trick, is always saying yes. You can't just say no. You can't say no, you don't, because blah blah blah. That's not improv. And
that ruins it.
Yeah, it ruins it.
Kind of kills the momentum.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I was about to say. And the reason they do that is because it's all about momentum. You want to keep the momentum flowing forward. And so the way that relates to us specifically,
that's what makes improv so funny.
Yeah.
Because it's always compounding. Yeah. And you're seeing all these people who've never done, they don't know the theme, they don't know the scene.
Yeah.
They're just like going with it.
It's easy to say no and come up with something completely different.
It's like playing pretend when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't do this. I can only do this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so easy to say no and come up with something different. But whenever you're building on top of what they already said and saying yes. So the way that relates to us in a worship team is, for instance, whenever you want to keep that momentum going forward in your team all the time. So say, for example, your worship leader comes in and says, I want to remove all the music stands off of the stage. They just say, he says that we're just not going to use music stands anymore. It's your job to get behind that and move that momentum forward. Yeah. And maybe it's a horrible idea. Maybe it's the best idea ever. You're never going to know till you move it forward. The faster you get behind to do it, the faster you're going to realize it's a bad idea, and you can move on and do something different. Sure. But the faster you're also going to progress and keep that momentum going forward. Yeah. But as soon as one worship team member stands up and says, no, I don't think that's a good idea, we're not going to do that, all the momentum is just dead. Yeah. And then that's when you can slip in and doubt, and all these different things start coming in from the enemy about this. The worship leader doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, it's our job to get behind that and move that momentum forward, and always say yes and always be available. And what can I do to help move that forward? Hey, do you need me to help pack up the music stands and put them in a box and light them on fire behind the church? Like, what do you need?
Yes,
what do you need to me? Not that like getting rid of music stands is the all thing, but if that's your worship leader's idea, going back to the episode about knowing who's in charge, like that, he's in charge, and it's your job to move that forward, move that momentum forward.
Absolutely, man. It's so important. You know, it's like you kind of live as a team, you die as a team. There's this kind of company word that comes to mind. It's been cool to kind of research that, being at a church where we have company in our name, because it's like we were kind of wondering, like, what's the history of that word? And it kind of comes from really a community in the military. You know, your company in the army, you're hand in hand, you're eating together, you're arm in arm together, you fight together. Yeah. And I think that that's how you approach a team, and a worship team. We're family. And so, you know, if your worship leader's wanting to be risky and try something new, all hands on deck. Yeah. Let's do it together. Exactly. If he fails, we fail with him, but that's okay. We're only going to learn from the experience. Yeah. I was just talking to a buddy of mine today about that, saying that like, if we didn't really understand, and I actually talked about to my wife about it, I think yesterday or the day before, because it's like, if we never knew what it was like to lose, then we really would never know the thrill of winning.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like if you're always winning, yeah, it's cool. But once you understand the pain of losing, then when you win, it's like the most amazing feeling. It's like accomplishment. It's all of the feels. It's like a redemption, you know, and I think that as a team goes, it's the same way. If your worship leader tries something and it bombs, okay, cool.
Yeah.
He's not a sinner. It's not a huge, massive heart problem that we have to confront. It just didn't work. Okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And maybe the next thing you do will win, and it'll even make that failure seem even more important because it'll be a mile marker. You know, and that could be a small thing like choosing a song. That could be a big thing, you know, like a sacred cow, like you mentioned the music stands, you know, like those are all things that every worship team kind of has to adjust and deal with. And we're saying all these things because there are tens of thousands of churches and they're all doing things differently, you know, and we're just here and we're all one family and we're just trying to facilitate a conversation to try to help push people forward, be inspired, be the best you can possibly be. And sometimes those limitations are things that we've put there. And so looking beyond that is really important. And that starts with just saying yes to change, going to the next place together as a team.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, it's easy to get stuck in your ways, especially for those musicians and leaders or musicians that have been part of the church for a really long time and they've done it a certain way. But that doesn't mean that like doing something different is necessarily wrong. And so it's even if you have been there forever, that's what some of the people I respect the most in this world are some older worship team members that have been there for years. And whenever the worship leaders comes in and says, "Hey guys, I want to try like let's start running tracks." And when I see an older worship team member like get behind that idea and be like, "Okay, I don't understand tracks. I don't even know how to use a computer, but let's do it." Let's do it. Like I respect that so much. And like the worship team is so healthy and like things are moving forward. And instead of just halting all the momentum and be like, "Oh, how can we flow if we're running tracks? That sucks all the spirit out." Like all the excuses and stuff. Like, well, no, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like, let's try it and let's give it our all and really give this a chance. It's our job. And I just love those older worship team members who do that. Like,
they're so good. They're some of my favorite people too. And obviously, I love that even just talking about this because, you know, we say this a lot, but there's a lot of rabbit trails you can chase when you're talking about worship because you and I have both been on worship teams forever. I was raised in the church, so I mean it's like my life. I'm still in the church today, and it's just like there's so many things you can talk about as far as team health, things to do together. But you're exactly right. And I think another thing too for those older team members is it's so inspiring to see older team members with a younger worship pastor, somebody who's in charge, and how they'll lift and support. I had guys like that on my team when I was at my home church on staff, and it was weird because like my dad was one of my drummers, and it was like, this is weird. You're my dad, like you're my boss, right? And a lot of my like I got hired when I was like 19. I really didn't know what I was doing, but there was just like these guys that were helping lift me up and really mentor me and help me and bring kind of me in with that service, as opposed to a comparison like he's a young kid, doesn't know what he's doing, I don't know what he's doing, you know, like that kind of mindset, which could also exist. So I think that it's all about the motive of the heart, and saying yes means getting involved and lifting up the people around you in the team.
That's so good. As I'm leading, not only in this, like for me specifically, as I'm leading like the Worship Online team and the company forward, like not every idea I have is probably the best idea in the world, but like thankfully like I have a team around me who's like, yeah, let's do it, like let's go for it, like let's try it. And not every idea, like if I can be vulnerable, like I had the idea, it's not super vulnerable because it's not that big a deal, like I wanted to like go all in on Snapchat and like do Snapchat, and like we started doing it and it just didn't work for us. It didn't work. Like it was like an idea I had, but luckily we found out really fast that it didn't work for us because everyone on the team jumped all in. We said, how can we do this? Let's let's make a plan, let's make a schedule, how can we do it? It didn't really like it didn't work.
Off.
It didn't take off. It didn't work for us. Like, and so we were able to find that out. And luckily, I didn't have one person on the team be like, "Oh, that's horrible. That's blah blah." You know, but they wouldn't be on my team if they did. So first of all, but you can't fire your worship team members, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, just that example. But when you have a team around you, things just progress. Like even if they're not, you're gonna find out like the ideas are either they work or they don't faster.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you do it as a team.
Yeah.
You live and you die as a team. I know that's really drastic, but it's true.
Yeah.
If you can fail as a team, you just get that much more connected together. You know, I think about the times with our worship team, even recently, where we started out a service and Ableton went haywire. The keyboard got transposed. Like it was just a massive, what we talked about, train wreck. And you couldn't help it. It was out of your control. And it wasn't something that was going to get fixed in 10 seconds. It was going to be a minute, you know, and it's just like, how do you lead through that? But as a team, we all look at that now, you know, it's like those things, it's frustrating in the moment, but it's actually hilarious weeks down the road. And, and those stories bring you closer together and they make the wins that much more enjoyable. And so we're family. It's okay to fail, but fail together. You know, don't be somebody to sit on the sidelines and watch your team fail. It doesn't make you a good team player at all. Just get in the game, be a part of it with them, and it'll be a huge momentum builder for your team just by saying yes.
And I don't think you can even call it a failure if it's, you know, you learned what didn't work and you did it together.
Yeah, it's a good way to say it.
I don't know if like you could really call that a failure. I think the only point in which you can call it a failure is if your team revolts and you don't do it and you don't try it and someone stands up. I've actually seen firsthand worship team members leave the worship team in the church because of that idea I said first about the worship pastor decided they wanted to try getting rid of all the music stands and have the musicians memorize the music. I've seen musicians leave the church just for that exact reason. And in my book, that's the biggest travesty. Like that's the biggest failure in my opinion. Like something wasn't right in that organization. Why those worship teams, instead of getting behind their leader and saying, yes, let's do it. No matter what, I'm going to do my best to do this and move this idea forward. They left. And I think at that point, maybe you could call it a failure. If you give up, that's when you can call it a failure. But otherwise, you're just learning. You're doing it together. You're learning what didn't work. If your worship leader comes in and says, today we're going to all hang from a trapeze and swing across the stage, it's your idea to say, where can I hang the trapeze and where can I swing from? Because I'm getting behind this idea and we're going to do it.
It's going to be awesome.
It's your job.
I really hope a church does that this weekend.
That would be awesome, really actually. I've actually seen churches do that. I'm not even going to lie.
That's awesome.
I've seen that trapeze in a church before. What? Not even lying.
Oh, my word.
It was pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if anyone got saved, but it was still pretty cool.
If your church does that, shoot it to us on an email or find a meme and send it to us.
Send it to us at Worship Online on Instagram. I want to see your trapeze in your church.
Yes. All right. Get involved. Go to worshiponline.com/podcast. Get all the details. Links are in the show notes. Follow us on Instagram for updates and leave us iTunes reviews, all that stuff. It's in the show notes today. You can also check us out on YouTube. What up, YouTube peeps? Thanks for following us there and subscribe there as well. But thanks so much for tuning in here to episode 13.
Yeah.